Welcome aboard as we take you on a trip to Norway and Iceland on board the beautiful Sky Princess, leaving on the 25th of June 2022.
So here we are aboard the Sky Princess. So we start, this is our cabin. So you'll notice there is ample storage space for when we actually unpack. Here's the bathroom. It's a pretty standard cruise ship bathroom. As you see, there's a big sink, toiletries, and a shower. And come out into the cabin. See, one nice big double bed, so comfortable. Some appropriate Norwegian scenery. Plenty of storage, nice little desk here, tea and coffee making facilities. As you notice here, we have, more useful than a minibar, we actually just have a fridge. But, and this is a first for us, we've also got a balcony.
Hello there.
You can see as we go out Southampton. We're getting ready to go.
We left Southampton late on Saturday evening, but were soon out on the North Sea, which thankfully was very calm. The ship hardly felt like it was moving. It was like sitting in a building on land and watching the water rush past.
So it's the second day of the cruise, the first full day, and we are at sea, crossing the North Sea. It's a beautiful day. We started the morning with a balcony breakfast, which was lovely, with croissants, Danish, that kind of thing. Spent most of the morning in the pool, the retreat pool on the top deck, and then we had a little wander around the ship. We had some pizza for lunch, and we've just been watching the wildlife from the balcony. It's been lovely.
At the end of our second sea day, just after we finished dinner, the ship took on a pilot and we began our transit of the Fjord. Travelling at a very slow pace throughout the night, we wouldn't reach Skjolden until the morning. We stayed up past midnight to watch the magic of our first fjord unfold. We woke up the next morning to an overcast but dramatic sight. Sky Princess had docked close to the end of this branch of the fjord, and it was spectacular and serene all at once. About 200 kilometres from the sea, Shoreham village is small, home to about 200 people, and we decided to go along the valleys in search of waterfalls. After a wonderful walk, on which we saw 2 majestic waterfalls and the lakeside retreat of Ludwig Wittgenstein, it was time to head back to the ship. With all aboard, it was time to cast off. Sognefjord is the longest and deepest fjord in Norway, reaching depths of over 1,300 metres, many times deeper than the North Sea. It's more than 1,000 metres deep for about 100 kilometres, or 60 miles, of its length, and it's surrounded by mountains, some of which reach over 2,000 metres in height above sea level.
today we're in Olden at the end of the Nordfjord. As you can see, we've walked up from Olden town centre. We're walking towards the mountains, hoping to see a lake shortly. We've just crossed the river and it's a raging torrent. It's really fascinating.
The weather in Olden was marvellous, and we hiked down the valley, down paths and along roads, to a wonderful spot by the Florian Lake. We might have got a little bit sunburnt. During the afternoon, we took a bus trip to a viewpoint where we were able to see the end of the glacier. However, I was quite so taken by the glacier that I forgot to take any footage. Olden was our first water shuttle or tender port. This means that the ship can't dock. In our case, it was because another ship was using the only key, and so passengers are shuttled between the ship and the port in specially adapted lifeboats. It was a very short journey back to the ship from Olden, and the water was flat. As we had walked several miles during the morning, it was just nice to be able to sit down. Our third port, and our last in Norway, was lovely Ålesund, a vibrant port city on the coast.
Good morning. Today we're in Ålesund, a small town, I suppose a city, in the north of Norway, on the coast, which was burnt down by an enormous fire in 1904. Over 850 houses were burnt down, and the whole building, the whole city was reconstructed in an Art Nouveau style. You having a lovely day here in Ålesund?
Oh, it's video. Yes, I am. It's very pretty. Lovely weather, not too warm, and yeah, really nice.
After a morning of exploring the city, we took a land train up to the Axla viewpoint for this marvellous panoramic view over the city. The panorama makes it quite clear how fundamental the sea is to the life of this bustling place. Ålesund is set over 7 islands, and you're never far from the water.
Well, here we are on sail away, finishing the day at Ålesund. Honestly, it was lovely. I think we both came into the port thinking, this will be just a kind of quick port stop, maybe get off and have a look, and that's it. We actually spent the whole day ashore. It was really beautiful, and the Art Nouveau architecture is spectacular. And so now we sail out to sea for a full sea day before we reach Iceland.
There was plenty to see on the water as we set out into the Norwegian Sea. The puffins that darted away from the boat were particularly charming. Throughout the voyage, it was quite rare not to be in the company of at least one gannet, overtaking the ship with ease.
So we're taking a break from watching the Wake Show, which is the cruise director's daily bulletin kind of TV show thing. It started like a morning news show, to show you what's happening outside. Come and see. Can you hear that? The fog has descended. We can see nothing. Even when you look down over the edge, you can barely see the sea. It's still, as you can see, really bright, but meters beyond the vessel, you can basically see very little. Here we are, it's Friday the 1st of July. It's a sea day, it's the sea day between Norway and Iceland, and we are at sea and we're still out in the fog. So the fog kind of hit just as we were leaving Ålesund yesterday, and it hasn't gone away. So it's lent a very mysterious kind of edge to everything. Here we are in completely open sea, and it's cold now and foggy, and it's kind of unbelievable that a couple of days ago I basically got sunburned walking around Norway, and here we are. It's starting to feel progressively more and more Arctic. This morning the captain came over on the tannoy and explained various things. Obviously said it's getting a little bit more, in the spirit for Iceland in terms of the weather. But also talked about the sunrise and sunset. And usually in the captain's briefing, he will talk about what time the sun will go down, what time the sun will rise. And for the first time, he said, this evening, because we were going north of the this evening, because we'll be going north of the Arctic Circle eventually, actually there will be no sunset, and therefore will be no sunrise either. So that's very exciting. Genuine midnight sun. It's Friday night, it's formal night. So we're heading down to the restaurant shortly. Hopefully have a lovely dinner and enjoy everyone being dressed up in their finery. So today we arrived in Akureyri in the north of Iceland. We have gone on a coach trip. So we are currently at Godafoss, which is an amazing waterfall, which has a whole load of mythology and history surrounding it. Try and tell you a little bit more about later.
Godafoss is known as the waterfall of the gods, whose crags are said to resemble pagan idols. There's also a myth not as old as you might think, that this is where statues of the Norse gods were thrown during the island's conversion to Christianity. We visited the area around Lake Mavaten, which has a stunning array of geological sites. Pseudo-craters, volcanic ash cones, hot springs and lava flows abound. There's also a healthy population of midges. We were very lucky, as some days these can swarm in such numbers that you need to wear a head net. These lava flows are said to be the home of several of Iceland's mischievous Yule lads, who, Icelandic folklore tells us, go around creating all kinds of havoc around the Christmas season. There is Alan on the balcony. I think he knows I'm there. So today we were in Akureyri in the north of Iceland. What an amazing day. So we took a bus tour, a minibus tour with Iceland Everywhere with our guide Siggy, and we visited the Godafoss waterfall, which was incredible. We visited lava flows, we visited the lake at Mavaten. I think that's an approximate pronunciation. And we saw lava flows, we saw pseudo craters, we saw volcanoes. Went to a place where there's a fissure on the surface above really where the plate boundary is between the Eurasian plate and the North American plate, and in the fissure there was also a fantastic little lagoon fed by a hot spring, and then went to the nature baths, which is a little bit like the Blue Lagoon near Reykjavik, but a little bit less developed, and a fantastic view. So came back to the ship, had dinner. During sail away, got a window seat table, which is fantastic, and saw a couple of whales while we were eating. So that was great. We went to the Vista Lounge and watched one of the bands called The Voyagers, who were really good, and then came back to the cabin. Just popped out onto the balcony for a bit at the just before going to bed, and saw a few birds, very nice,
and then suddenly a pod of whales appeared. I was aware that Akureyri was quite a good port to see whales. I wasn't expecting to see that. Really quite close to the ship at times, breaching, tails splashing down on the water. It was a most memorable experience. It was fantastic. It felt almost religious. So all in all, a pretty amazing day. Good morning. We are in Ísafjörður today, which is on the very far north coast of Iceland. It's on a peninsula, and it really is a very remote town. You can see behind me, really it's a very small settlement, and it's in its big sweeping fjord. We've noticed it's a lot colder today, so wrapped up warm and going for a walk.
Ísafjörður is also home to the marvellous Nonsense Museum. We didn't get any footage, but let's just say it was weird and wonderful. Between Ísafjörður and Grundarfjörður, I started to put together a little tour of the ship. I'd hoped to finish this in the last few sea days, but sadly a visit from COVID-19 put pay to that. Here's all the footage I got. Hopefully you can see from this that it's a beautiful ship. We spent quite a lot of time on the first 2 sea days at the retreat pool. It takes people a little while to figure out that it's there, so it's a pretty relaxed place for a swim or sunbathe at the beginning of the cruise. The ship's atrium, the piazza, is a focal point for the ship and spans 3 decks. There are various shops, eateries and bars around it, and there's also often live music.
So today we're touring the Snæfellsnes Peninsula in the northwest of Iceland, and today we come to these wonderful waterfalls.
The peninsula is marked by its dramatic landforms, such as the basalt columns we saw earlier, and these dramatic cliffs with their seemingly bizarre patterns. This beach, bleak and otherworldly, is covered in black sand and surrounded by lava flows. It's made all the more eerie by scattered debris from the wreck of a British freighter from the late 1940s. Not every volcanic cone in Iceland has steps, but fortunately, this one did. This one didn't. So we had to view it from afar. Sadly, due to COVID, we had to miss Reykjavik, and we stayed in isolation until we returned to Southampton. At least we had a balcony cabin, so we could continue to marvel at the sea and the life in and around it, including dolphins and, of course, more gannets.
And so here we are, the final night, which also means the final night in isolation, which is quite a good feeling. So, bags are outside the door. In fact, they've already been collected. So really it's just a question of walking off tomorrow, collecting the bags, driving back up to Coventry. I had some pictures delivered, taken by the ship's photographers. I wouldn't usually buy those, but it just kind of felt like it was a nice way to reconnect with the holiday before we went into isolation, and actually have cheered me up quite a lot. So, yeah, it really just remains to finish watching Frasier. I have to say, we have been very grateful for the company of Kelsey Grammer over the last few days. And head to bed, and then wake up in Southampton. Over and out.